Hi, my name is Precious, and one of my bachelor's of science is in psychology. Today, we're going to talk about the hidden cost of avoidance, what you're really sacrificing. Let's talk about the things that you're not doing, not starting, not finishing, not responding to, and also not confronting. We don't talk enough about avoidance because it doesn't look like destruction, but rather it looks like silence. Avoidance looks like being busy, it looks like scrolling, it looks like waiting for the perfect moment before you take action. Avoidance feels safe, that's why we do it. So our nervous system interprets avoidance as protection. Skipping the hard conversation, you just avoided conflict. Not submitting that job application, you just avoided a possibility of a rejection letter. Delaying that decision, you just avoided accountability. But the thing is, every time you avoid, you're not just skipping discomfort, you're reinforcing this neutral loop. Psychologist Barlow in 2002 actually highlights that avoidance is a key component in the maintenance of anxiety disorders. When you avoid, you may feel temporary relief, but the underlying fear grows stronger. Essentially, you're training your brain to say, this thing is dangerous, so I'm just going to stay away. And the more you avoid, the more sensitive your nervous system becomes to the threat. You begin to shrink because avoidance is not neutral. It chips away at your confidence, it chips away at your goals, it chips away at your growth, and it chips away at your relationships. It keeps you stuck at a holding pattern while life moves on without you. There's actually a phrase that my dad used to say, and it goes along the lines of, because the world is always evolving and going forward, if you're staying still, you're essentially moving backwards. And that quote has always been with me because it hits so deep and it's so true. Now, let's talk about the neuroscience of avoidance. Avoidance isn't just emotional, it's also neurological. Every time you avoid a perceived threat, like fear of rejection, fear of failure, social rejection, or even vulnerability, your brain gets a dopamine hit. And that little hit of relief is a trap. The amygdala, which processes fear, becomes hyperactive when it senses potential danger, even if that danger is just an uncomfortable email. And now, your prefrontal cortex, which is the side of your brain that is responsible for decision making, executive function, and long-term planning, becomes overridden at that moment. And it says, we'll deal with that later. But later never comes. The thing is that your prefrontal cortex and your amygdala cannot run equally at the same time. Brewer in 2012 describes this as the habit loop of anxiety, which is trigger, behavior, and reward. The more you avoid, the more you teach your brain that avoidance equals safety, and that makes the avoidance more automatic. When you keep avoiding things constantly, it literally hijacks your ability to choose things differently. When you choose to avoid, here are 6 things that you're sacrificing without realizing. So these are the real cost of avoidance. The first one is your clarity. Avoidance fogs your thinking. You obsess over what might happen instead of getting feedback on what actually happens. The second one is you sacrifice your confidence. Every time you don't show up, you are reinforcing the belief that you can't. Third one is you sacrifice connection. Avoiding vulnerability creates a distance in your relationships. The next thing you sacrifice is momentum, because what you delay becomes heavier. The resistance grows each day. You also sacrifice your identity. The longer you avoid doing the hard thing, the more it becomes part of your self-concept. You begin to see yourself as someone who just doesn't follow through, even though that may necessarily not be the truth. And the last thing is you also sacrifice fulfillment. See, avoidance doesn't just rob you of the difficult things, it also robs you of the beautiful things, like clarity after a conflict, freedom after finishing, and also pride after progress. Avoidance whispers that you're buying time, but what you're really doing is borrowing regret from your future. Now that we've talked about that, let's talk about how to break the pattern. The first thing is name the thing that you're avoiding. I want you to say it out loud. I want you to write it down. Labeling it actually activates your prefrontal cortex. It gives you just enough distance to reduce emotional reactivity. Second key is notice the urge to escape. That tight feeling in your chest, that racing heart, or that flutter in your gut, that is the cue. So I want you to pause before you automatically retreat. Last key is interrupt the loop. I want you to do one tiny action towards the thing that you fear. Send one email, ask one question, send one paragraph. Just do something that is pushing you towards the thing that you fear. Behavioral psychology actually calls this exposure with response prevention, which is by Abramowitz. It's all in 2011. So when you face the trigger and withhold the avoidance, anxiety peaks and falls. Your brain relearns that that thing wasn't as dangerous as it thought it was. See, you weren't born to avoid life. You were born to live it. You were born to feel it. You were born to face it. Avoidance may feel safe, but growth is what makes you feel alive. Discomfort is the price of transformation. So let the discomfort come. Face the conversation, open the laptop, send the message, apply now. Speak up anyway, because the cost of avoidance is your life unlived. But the reward of action is freedom. That is all for this video. Thank you so much for watching. Let me know if you have any thoughts, questions, comments, or concerns, and let me know if there's anything you'd like me to further expand on. I will be linking all the references I use in creating this video in the caption below. That is all for now. Bye.